I have a few more questions, but I want to make sure that everyone here gets what they want out and gets their questions answered that more pertains to their desires and whatnot. So does anybody have a question that they want to ask Geordie or myself?
I'm just wondering, Sean, are you going to ask questions about like rental costs for people moving there? Because like we're going to be renting obviously whenever we first get there. We plan on booking just an Airbnb for a few weeks to like make sure that we like the area and that this is the place that we want to be. We're in the Facebook groups and stuff like that, but just wondering like what the range of rent is for like, 1 to 2, 3 bedroom places in the different areas around Bucerius.
Well, great decision. Great question, and it's a really good decision to approach it your way because every area is very different. We didn't find the social media groups helped us at all. I had gone on those groups starting in April for us coming at the end of August, and no one was able to really help me during that time. And you see a lot of derogatory remarks, and then everybody's trying to promote their places without really listening to you. So it comes down to a couple of things. Right now, rent prices since COVID, just like everywhere else in the world, have kind of skyrocketed to the point where it's almost ridiculous, and they're starting to come back. So I have a lot of landlords who are realizing that a lot of homes are having price reductions. And I've had to educate a lot of the landlords I deal with that, hey, the Canadians have lost 25% to the super peso in just 1 year. And they're coming here because they're looking to save money. And they expect if they're paying a big dollar to be in a rental property, that it should be a phenomenal rental property. Prices fluctuate all over depending on where you want to be. Most people come here and they say, well, I want to be right by the beach. I want to be in what's called the Golden Zone or Zona Dorado, which is this little pocket from the highway to the beach. If you look on YouTube, you're going to see it. It's getting priced out. It's getting to the point where if you want a 2 bedroom, 2 bath in high season, so anywhere from November until May, you'll be paying upwards of $3,000 US. And everybody doubled the rates last year. And this year they've maintained those rates. And what's happening is they're realizing people aren't coming, people aren't booking as early, and now the rates are starting to come down. So if you decide you can get outside of that zone and you don't mind walking 10 or 15 minutes to the beach and being in an area like, well, Sean's a little bit further out, you'd really need a vehicle. But where we're living, for instance, it's intercity living. I can walk out and I can grab tacos and go to the coffee shop and go to the fruiteria, and I can walk to everything. But there's going to be some more noise and there's going to be dogs barking. If you want to be close to the beach and you're okay with it, you're going to pay a big nut. I can tell you that right now, January, February, March, you could be looking at upwards of $4,000 US a month. The thing is, what you need to do is share with somebody, whether it's myself or another agent, because I don't have tons of rental properties anymore. We're starting to migrate away from it because we're finding some of these landlords a little bit challenging in their unrealistic expectations. But I've managed to get several to bring their pricing down. And what I find to be reasonable in a condo situation in a nice gated private complex with pools and security, you can get into a 2 bedroom, 2 bath, somewhere in the vicinity of about 40,000 pesos, which now the prices come down between 22 and 2,500 US. If you want to be paying somewhere in the 2,000 Canadian range, you really need to venture outside of the touristy areas. And I'd love to say it's different, but it just isn't right now. I see next year the prices coming down because what's happened is there's been an implosion and there are dozens and dozens of condos going up in this area. They're everywhere. So if you want to be in the tourist zone, you're going to be surrounded by construction all the time after paying this massive amount of money. You're going to go to restaurants who have inflated their prices 50% since we got here 2 years ago. And you're going to say, well, this isn't why we came to Mexico. So if you're coming here to live, chances are you don't want to be where the tourists are. You're going to say, hey, it's okay for a month or two. I got the vibe, but my God, it's time to get out. Then you need to ask yourself, do I want privacy? Do I want quiet? Am I okay with barking dogs? Am I okay being near a highway and all the trucks and the bikes? And that takes some time. So getting an Airbnb is a great way to start, but then engaging with somebody, like ourselves, for instance, where you say, hey, Geordie, here's my budget, here's our needs, we've got a pet, we're going to be putting a child in school, here's some of the things that we need. And I can tell you that the reason we've moved so many times is because we ended up in areas that weren't right. The first area was way too noisy and too busy. The second area, it was inner city and the people were loud and they play their music loud and dogs bark on the roof. And we found it a little dirty. So then we moved to this area, and lo and behold, they were running a daycare next door. And it was hell on wheels for a while until they shut the daycare down. But we came here because we said, hey, we got a dog. The balcony isn't really working. The dog needs some space. And we didn't want to be taxi parents for 4 years with our daughter. We wanted to move somewhere where she could walk to school safely. A lot of things to consider. And usually what I do is I ask people so many questions, they're almost sick of me. But if I don't have answers to those questions, then I can't effectively steer you in the right direction or help you find what you need. And I know the majority of the good rental agents here, and we're passing on leads all the time because I'm a realtor. I prefer to sell real estate. We have a handful of rentals, but I can tell you I've dumped probably 10 properties this year because the landlord wasn't doing the things they said they would do. The prices were inflated. I'd have a client complain. As soon as a client complains about a landlord and that landlord isn't going to do anything about it, I'm done. My reputation means more to me than making money, but really it comes down to you're coming to live here and you're coming to find a place. I'd want to know how many people in the family. Are you working from home? How important is quiet? How much space do you need? Do you want to have a car here? Et cetera, and then we can steer you to some of the right areas. And when you get here, we can drive you around and show you, hey, this is why I recommend this place. This is why I don't recommend this place. If you go a little bit further out than you were thinking, you've got this great community, but hey, you can walk to the grocery store, but you may have to take a bus here, there, or somewhere else.
Could they find, if they want to cross that highway, like to our side of the road where you guys and we are, is there something under 2,000 in that range?
Well, absolutely. The thing is, if you're coming at high season, you can't get around it. Most people, when they're going to make the move full time, the time to look at a property is May. High season ends in April. By May 1st, every single property owner is knowing that they're going to spend the next 6 months empty unless they get a 12-month tenant. We focused on long-term rentals because we just didn't want to be dealing with a week here, a month there, 2 months there. Wanted to put people in and then be able to renew and then have them say, okay, I've been here a year now. Maybe it's time to buy because I'm spending all this money on rent. But yes, there are areas where you can certainly find that. Generally, you're looking at properties that are owned by nationals, and then you run into a whole other set of challenges, as I've shared with you, Sean. I mean, we've had 2 national owners, we've had different sets of problems, and we've had an American owner, and oddly enough, we had different problems. We had a Canadian contractor, and we still had problems. So none of this, Mexicans are bad to deal with. That's a load of crap. There's some phenomenal, wonderful people here. So if you're looking for a value property, then we're looking at properties that are owned by nationals and not Americans and Canadians, because what they're doing is what we're doing. We're going to put up a lavish place. We want a big buck for it. We want you for 6 months. Maybe you'll buy it. If not, we hope you come back next year and spend a large amount of money again, because your carrying costs, they add up, right?
For sure. And if someone's coming in the next couple months, potentially Caitlin and Brian, around November, if they can lock something in now for a year, will they give them a lower rate even
Absolutely.
through high season?
It's really the way to go. I'll give you an example. I have a couple who just got out of their lease to get into something bigger. Their dogs were barking too much. They needed more space. The landlord was crying and whining about cash flow to me. And I said, listen, I got somebody who's ready to take this place for 4 months. He said, well, I really want a 12-month tenant. And I said, nobody's coming September and October. So why, you've got a choice. I can tell this guy we're waiting for a 12-month rental and you can be empty through high season, or you lock up a high season rate and then we start promoting for April, May. But there are still some people, and it's very tight right now. I won't lie to you, we're into September, and this is the time when all the people have realized they've left it too late. The summer holidays are over, the kids are back in school. I got to find a place. Well, everybody who is looking for long-term has now locked in high season people. So finding a place at a low rate starting high season will be a challenge unless you accept up something lowering your standards and you go a little bit further out. It's a reality. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It'll be very challenging. I'll give you an example. One block over on Verano, and I was thinking about moving to save 13,000 pesos a month because we're looking to move when our daughter goes back to Canada next June. And I know the agent, and there's a property, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath in what I think is an absolutely phenomenal location. You're close to everything, and you're just one block across the highway from the Golden Zone. You can get into a 2-bed, 2-bath for 13,000 pesos. So that's equivalent about 1,000 Canadian dollars a month. And it's got a yard. And this woman said to me, Geordie, I really don't want somebody for high season. This landlord wants somebody for long-term. So they do come up.
Lock us in, we're in.
So what I can do, and I said to this agent, and I was upfront with her, I want to look at it for me and my friend. He said, I'm a single guy, I don't need 2 bedrooms. I'm not going to pay that money. And Louise just said to me, you're not making me move. So that was the end of that. And so I messaged the woman. I said, listen, we're not interested, but I know the property now. And if I find somebody's interested, I'll forward them to you. So here's a prime example is I would take that information, I'll send it to Caitlin. And at the same time, I would get Caitlin's information and I would pass it on to this Jessica woman. I make nothing. It's not important. You know, here's the thing. If I decide that it's important for me to make 50% of that commission, what happens is the local agent won't want to deal with me. They're going to hold out till they find somebody. But if I can help Caitlin get into a place that serves her needs, she won't forget it. And the only hope is she goes, okay, a year from now I'm looking to buy. Hopefully I'm the #1 choice. So we'll do a lot of things for nothing to help people because our sole focus is eventually selling real estate. But those opportunities come along. They don't come along often. But here's a place that may be perfect for you. You may think, okay, it's too noisy. You didn't realize the neighbors play their music loud at night. God, I can hear some of the trucks on the highway. But you know what? I can tell you, we're paying double that in rent. And I thought I would never pay more than $1,000 Canadian a month when we got here. But we have a daughter, we have a dog, we've got expectations, we needed quiet to work. You know, there's a lot of things to consider. So yes, there are opportunities, they're few and far between. And now if you're looking at something long-term, now would be the time to jump. And then what I also encourage is, you always say to the agent, I want to do a live tour. So you show me these pictures, you perfect angles, but I want to see the street. I want to see what's across from me. I want to make sure there isn't some guy with a sheet metal shop. There isn't a house with roosters, because this stuff exists, guys. There isn't a daycare next door. And, you know, the guy next door isn't learning to play the freaking guitar at 3 in the morning. There's all kinds of stuff. This is Mexico. It will blow your mind. But we don't want it to be Canada. So, sometimes I do, I got to admit. But
you can tolerate that stuff in a week's vacation, but when you live here, you're like, the mariachi band is now annoying me.
Yeah.
Stop.
But the good news is, if you can lock into something, and here's what happens, and I don't know that they'll do it, but a lot of my landlords, they want first, last, and security deposit, because a lot of people will move in November. They're going to get the 1-year discounted price, and in April, vamos, they're gone. And so they've lost out on all that high season money. So you need to be prepared to maybe have to put a little bit more money up front to secure something long-term coming into high season. But boy, you could get into something in that location for that price. Like I said, I was ready to jump on it myself.
Can you give an idea of like what water, because usually you pay your rent fee, you negotiate that, and then there's fees on top of that, electricity.
Okay, well, for the most part, just all rentals will include, not all, but most are going to include your water, your gas, because they're very inexpensive. Many will already have the internet as part of it. You will always pay your electricity extra. And the reason being is a lot of people who come down here aren't used to the heat and they run their AC 24/7. We don't run our AC basically from November until June. Don't even think about it. And until this hot year, we rarely ran it at all, even during the low season. We would shut the blinds at 3 in the afternoon when the sun's coming in. We'd crank on the air for a couple of hours to cool it down, and then we'd maybe turn it on in our bedroom. But if you're going to crank the AC 24/7 in all your rooms, you better be prepared to drop another 200 to 300 American a month in your electricity bill. But in high season, it'll be negligible. It might cost you 20, 30 bucks. So the CFE, which is the electricity, will always be extra. Some places might give you the place dirt cheap and they say you pay everything. So your water bill might cost you $6 a month. Your gas is going to cost you not even $10 a month. And then your Wi-Fi is only maybe 30 bucks a month. So that's all negligible stuff. It's really inexpensive. Some places have filtered water, not many. You just get a water delivery service. It's really inexpensive. Your water is going to cost you maybe 10, 15 bucks a month, including your delivery.
Our electricity bill in a fairly small home that we only run the AC at night in the bedroom every night was $310 for 2 months. So roughly 155, and that's sparingly. Like, yeah, I know some friends that run it 24/7 and they have a $600 bill.
Another thing is when we're looking at these units to make sure they've got new high efficiency inverter ACs, reduces your cost dramatically. Our first condo, it cost us nothing. I mean, it was nothing. When we were here right through high season and it was negligible. So it depends on, the sun exposure, what kind of ACs you have. We make sure that they're serviced, very inexpensive to service them, and just keep those costs low. Like you said, keep the airflow going, know when to shut the doors and the blinds. And like you said, blast it in the bedroom for an hour or two before you go to bed, turn it off, leave the ceiling fan on, and you're likely good to go.
Do you recommend, Geordie, people coming here and getting into gated communities, or not necessarily?
We don't live in one. It's never been a problem. This area is so unbelievably safe. And oddly enough, you get out of the tourist zone, it's even safer. All the crime, all the robberies, they've pretty much been, you've got the Golden Zone and then you got Centro and Los Picos towards the north. And that's where you get some people sleeping on the beach and some of the poorer people. That's where any robbery that occurs has been occurring. There's absolutely no need for it. It depends what you want, right? Like, I've never been a fan of going to one of these countries and living in a gated community. It doesn't give me a feel for it. But there's a lot of wonderful gated communities where you've got community swimming pools. It's great for kids. You got a little yard for the dog, what have you. It's a preference. But if you're in those communities, you're going to be a little bit further away. So you've got to anticipate walking a little longer or perhaps having a car.